Hello and welcome to Ceilidh Club special, where we are delighted to talk with Gordon Quinn from Badach Row Distillery up in the northwest of Scotland. Gordon, good morning. How are you doing and what's life like today?
Good morning. Yeah, great to see you again. Yeah, well, we're in Badach Row, very northwest Highlands of Scotland. The sun is not shining, but at least the rain is not falling. And up here, they always say rain is just liquid that hasn't turned to whiskey yet. So I'm sure it will come soon enough, but not a bad start to the week, thanks.
And tell us, talking about starts, how did you end up in such an idyllic place doing a job that many people would consider to be a dream job?
Well, I tell you, it's quite a long story, but I'll try to keep it reasonably short. I came up here when I was 20 years old. I'm from Edinburgh. And I came up to the Highlands Hill walking, and I went with a pal, and we got here, and the rain was horizontal. So we decided not to go up a hill, but to go down the road to the pub. Ended up there in the afternoon and the evening, and made some good friends, and there were some folk in there playing fiddles, and it was just that archetypal, ideal Highland pub atmosphere, and just loved the place. So came back a few weeks later when the weather was better and did actually get to climb the mountain, Ben Alligan, and crashed on the sofa of one of my new friends here and fell in love with Badach Row. Just kept on coming back up. I had quite a stressful job in Edinburgh, so it was a great escape once a month or so. And I came up here for about 5 years making pals, and then heard about this group of German school leavers who'd come here on a traditional end of school trip. Two of the girls on that trip really loved Badach Row, and they kept on coming back regularly and made friends with my friends. And eventually, I met one of these girls at the end of the bar in the Badach Row Inn, and we were married 12 weeks later. Vanessa and I were married very quickly in Badach Row, and we went travelling around the world. We lived in Jeddah for a while, and Dubai for a while, and in London for a fair while. And eventually packed in the rat race to come and live this slightly naively idyllic life in Badach Row, and did the whole grand designs thing, living in a caravan, going way over budget on the build of our new house, falling out with a builder. It just all went pear-shaped. But we got there. We lived in a caravan with a baby and a toddler and a grumpy cat. But we got there, and 6 months and 3 days after starting to build the house, we moved in. But we overspent, so we had no money left at all. The easy way to make the money was to do bed and breakfast. So we did that for a year or two that turned into 13 years, and started doing evening meals, and people wanted to drink with their evening meals. So we got licensed. And then Vanessa suggested, because we were making a fair living in the summer, but nothing in the winter, Vanessa very sensibly suggested we try to make something in the winter that we could then sell in the summer when there were lots of people here. And that was going to be a room diffuser or a scent or something out of the plants up here, because Vanessa had retrained as a horticulturalist / botanist. And she went out and picked lots and lots and lots of different plants, not just the leaves, but leaves and berries and roots and barks and seeds and all sorts of stuff. And I did a bit of research, Ed, and discovered that the traditional ways of getting flavors and smells out of plants are to use either sugars or alcohol. Now, as you probably know, Saudi Arabia is not the easiest place in the world to live in for somebody used to the Western culture, because it's illegal for women to work, to drive, to be in the company of a man who's not their husband, father, or brother, unless they're chaperoned, which is all, you adhere to in that culture, because that's when in Rome, do as Romans do. And alcohol is completely illegal as well. But some people have been quite innovative in that respect in Saudi. And I'd seen some goings-ons and decided to try to produce our own music. Sorry, Ed, I'll start again. I presume you can edit.
Yeah, but it's more fun like this.
Decided that we would use alcohol rather than sugars, because we had a little bit of experience from our days overseas. So I did a bit of research and found plans of how to build a still on YouTube. With the help of a local plumber, we made our first still out of a pressure cooker and then copper pipes to make the condensing head. And then I distilled all these plants that Vanessa had collected. And we ended up with a library of about 40 different distillates, from dandelion roots to gorse blossom to elderflower and some of the orchids that grow in the fields here. heather, etc., etc. And then we'd get the kids off to bed, and Vanessa and I would smell them. We called it nosing them because it was terribly sophisticated. We would nose them, and then we'd start combining them to see if we could build up an aroma profile for something nice and smelly to sell. And as you probably know, there's such a close connection between smelling things and tasting things. And when something smells really nice, it's a little bit difficult not to give it a little taste. And we did. And we decided that this was far more fun. And Vanessa, because Vanessa's from Munich, and Munich is sort of colloquially known as the most northern city of Italy because there's a lot of Italian influence in Munich. But in the south of Italy, there's a liqueur called Mirto. And Mirto is made from myrtle. And around Badach Row in the Northwest Highlands here, there is a huge amount of myrtle growing. Bog myrtle, it's called. We've rebranded it. Rebranded it wild myrtle because we don't like the word bog in our drinks. No. But we have so we thought we'll make our own Highland Mirto. That'll be really unique, and we did. It was disgusting. This is not our route forward. Definitely not our route forward. So we kept on experimenting, and one day put a little bit of juniper distillate that we'd made into the mix, and thought that tastes a bit familiar. That smells familiar. Oh. It's a bit like gin. Maybe we should try and make gin. So we produced about 5 different gin recipes, trying to get towards something that is more commonly recognised as being gin.
And Gordon, when was this? What year was this?
This was in 2016, so 8 years ago. And we produced 5 that were in the region of gin, if you like. And Vanessa and I could not agree on which one was the one that we were going to make our Badachro Gin, although we hadn't decided on that name then. So we took them all down to the Badachro Inn, which is our research facility, as well as the kind of community hall. It's everything in Badachro. Great pub. So we took them down there looking for some sort of consensus, of which we got none at all. We got 30 different opinions. Really didn't help. So we then came back and I did what one does, and I gave in. I said, okay, Vanessa, we'll go with your choice. So we did that, and thank goodness we did, because it's gorgeous, and it was the founding rock of the distillery's offering. At some point during this process, Vanessa said, Gordon, you're going to have to go and get some sort of training before you blow the house up or poison somebody. Because we'd made everything up as we went along. And so I went down to Edinburgh to do a 1-week course and ended up doing a year-long diploma in distilling. And on that, met lots of interesting people. One of the guys actually I went to his distillery to work, at Strathearn Distillery to work for a week to get some hands-on experience, and ended up staying there for a month. When I was leaving, Tony gave me our first still and said, Gordon, this is my first still. I want you to have her to start your distillery up with. And let's start a tradition. When you've finished with her, hand her on to somebody else who's starting up their distillery, and we'll create a tradition. And we still have her, but she will go on to somebody else eventually. I came back with knowledge, experience, and a still. So we needed a bigger shed, because that's where we were doing the distilling, out in the garden shed. And of course we had to go through the whole bureaucracy of the HMRC system, and that took us 7-8 months. And eventually we were able to produce and sell our Badachro Gin. And because we handpicked most of the botanicals in Badachro, for Badachro Gin we handpicked myrtle, lavender, gorse blossom, elderflower, and rosehip, and originally the juniper as well. So we wanted the whole thing to be about Badachro. So the label which you see behind me was designed to reflect the purity and clarity of the air, the land, and the water, in a very simple bottle, because it's a very unpretentious, simple area, really. And this all happened about the same time as the NC 500, the North Coast 500, was becoming popular, and people were coming up to Inverness and then travelling either clockwise or anti-clockwise around the Highland coast. And Badachro Gin really just travelled with people. They'd come to Badach Row or Gairloch and try it and like it and take a bottle with them, or they'd go further north and ask for it in bars. And I travelled around, and then we decided to focus our tiny little marketing efforts in the Highlands, and then go for the city of Inverness. And I'm from Edinburgh, so we wanted to sell some of it in Edinburgh and Glasgow. And Vanessa, being from Munich, was very keen that we try and sell some in Germany. And the whole thing spread. And our intention was to produce one gin and focus all our efforts and our marketing budget and our whole focus on one product, Badachro Gin. And we're clearly not very disciplined, because now we have 5 gins, 2 vodkas, 1 rum, and 6 single malt whiskies. So it's gone a bit berserk. And we're now exporting from across half a dozen countries in Europe, but also Taiwan and Singapore and Canada. We make contract gins for the Bermuda duty free, which is a fantastic contract to have, and for the National Trust and for Historic Scotland, a whole number of external companies on a white label basis. A couple of very prestigious private clubs in London as well, but I can't name them, unfortunately. So that's how the whole thing has evolved, and it has been a joy, to be honest. It's a pleasure. It's a great job.
And this might seem like a bit of a daft question, but did you ever sit down with the spreadsheet and the business plan and your 70 pages of how you're going to become unique in the marketplace?
You know, I'd love to say we didn't, and we didn't to start with. But then when we had to start thinking that initially the distillery product was really something that we just wanted to replace our evening meals with, and we were still going to do the bed and breakfast, it really was going to be a little sideshow, small sideshow. And then when we realized it was taking off, and I kind of refound my marketing mojo. I worked in the marketing for Pepsi in the Middle East for quite a long time, and then Emirates Airlines, and then for London ad agencies. And I'd escaped from it because it had kind of overpowered me. And as Vanessa and I both had quite good careers going. But when kids come along, it's a real struggle to keep the careers and the children and be good parents, and especially when you're living in London, where everything's quite expensive. So this escape to the countryside really was core objective, and we didn't want to be sucked back into it. But that little bit of me definitely crept up again, and started putting cash flow projections together to see if we could grow, and we needed to extend the size of the distillery and buy some bigger stills, and how was that going to be paid for, and then get some help from Scottish Enterprise, and they require business plans and spreadsheets. And so yeah, we did eventually start doing that. But I mean, we're still a very small distillery. We employ a total of 8 people now, but they're not all on site in the distillery. It's not like Gordon and the Seven Dwarfs or anything. It's Vanessa and myself sort of running the business, and we've got a retail person, and we've got a couple in production, and then Olya, our fantastic. She came to work for us for a few weeks. She's a Ukrainian refugee, and she's still with us. She does a fantastic job in our digital marketing. And then a sales person based in Glasgow, and somebody who helps with doing the bookkeeping and sort of the admin, because I'm good at starting it, but I'm rubbish at keeping that stuff up to date. So it really needs to be put into the hands of a responsible adult.
Know what you're talking about.
So yeah, we've grown. We do have aspirations to grow, but not in a huge volume way. Our single malt whiskey, which is sourced, we buy in single malt whiskey, some peated and some non-peated, from another highly reputed Highland distillery. I won't say who it is just now. And then when the whiskey arrives, Vanessa and I go over to Speyside Cooperage, which is at Craigallachie, near Aberlour. It's a fantastic place. These huge pyramids of empty casks outside, and inside the noise and the fire and the smell.
Fabulous.
It's a fantastically kind of sensory experience going there.
It's brilliant.
Vanessa and I go there, and we nose lots of different casks, because we'll have decided if we want to put this whiskey we've bought into more ex-bourbon casks, or into ruby port casks, or rum casks, or ex-Madeira casks, or Chianti casks, or whatever kind of casks. And that's our gig, really. We're whiskey makers in that the whiskey industry says that roughly 30% of the flavour of whiskey comes from the still, and about 70% of it comes from the wood, from the casks that it's kept in. So we decided to go down the route of what we felt we could be most creative in and put our input in, which was the wood end of it, the 70% side of it, which is why we decided to source whiskey before making our own. So we go and we choose these casks, we bring them back, we put whatever mix of the pre-matured whiskey into it, and then we put them into our little dunnage warehouse. The dunnage warehouse is a traditional whiskey maturation warehouse with an earthen floor, and that helps keep the humidity and temperature a bit more even. And as you probably know, Ed, humidity in a whiskey maturation warehouse is key because we want to minimize the angel share, which is the evaporation out of the cask, which is a real loss to whiskey and whiskey maturing. So we do that, and then when we've decided it's ready, we bottle it, and it's called, our whiskey brand is called Badach, which is the name of the little loch right next to the distillery. It's difficult to remember and a bit unpronounceable, but it's very authentic, and that's the lead export product. So, wow. So our next move in the next 6 months is to start producing our own new make spirit, which is what the liquid that comes out of whiskey still is called new make spirit, and it's not allowed to be called Scotch whiskey until it's been in a cask for 3 years and 1 day. So we'll be producing our own single malt whiskey from scratch by the end of the year probably, which is hugely exciting.
That's very exciting, isn't it? And the next stage in the journey, I mean, you say you've got, mentioned a small operation, but you produce a lot for a small operation.
We do for a small operation. I mean, we produced about 25,000 bottles last year, full-size bottles of, across all our products, and about 10,000 miniatures, which is not even a drop in the ocean in terms of the Scottish spirits industry. But it's a lot for our little setup. But we're helping not quite half a dozen, maybe 4 or 5 families live through employment, and we're pretty happy, most of the time relaxed. There's always a fire to fight somewhere.
But generally,
isn't it?
Just going back to when you go to the cooperage, which is a fantastic thing. If anyone's not seen a cooperage, it's just one of the most fascinating places to go and visit. It's so exciting and so interesting, and a real taste of how things used to be, actually seeing people make things, break barrels down, open them up, put them together again, whatever it is. It's a wonderful thing to see.
It's amazing. And the guys all work on piecework. So they get paid according to how many casks they make, and the speed that they work up is really quite remarkable. If you're near Craigallachie or Aberlour, one of the Speyside Distilleries tours, it's very sort of informal thing, is worth it.
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
I have no vested interest.
No, neither have I. I remember it's remarkable. Yeah. It really sticks in the mind. But when you go there and you're nosing these casks, you're obviously looking for what you think is right. How close to what comes out in the end is your prediction when you're nosing these casks?
Well, when we're nosing them, there are 2 stages to nosing them, I would say. And we nose most of them at least a couple of times. We might decide we're after some ex-Caribbean rum casks and some ex-Ruby port casks. And we only buy maybe 4 or 6 casks at a time, because that's the kind of scale that we're working on. And the first nosing is really to make sure that there are no metallic-y or musty notes in the cask, because they're stored outside. Sometimes for quite a while. Some of them turn a little bit and have some quite obvious bad notes in them. So we'll discard them, and then we'll go back and look for the smells of things that it's a process of elimination rather than the process of looking for the great notes, which when you get them, we'd recognize them and put that cask aside. But it's really looking for something that's not at all sulfury, and there's not too much of a kind of silage-y note in it, perhaps. It depends on what kind of whiskey we're trying to develop. Usually we want a very clean note. The difference in nose between a Madeira cask and a port cask is quite subtle. So fortunately for us, before Vanessa came to live in Scotland permanently, she did a 4-year apprenticeship in a 5-star hotel in Munich. And a year of that included a lot of sommelier training. Mm-hmm. So she has quite a formalized and objective way of sensing and recording these kind of things. She's a lead on that, definitely. She has a much bigger nose than me as well. So yeah, if we're looking for rum casks, we'll be looking for the kind of rum notes. So we don't want our whiskey to taste of rum. We just want it to pick up some of the maybe Caribbean rum or Caribbean fruit notes. There might be some pineapple or some coconutty or some mango and a little more vanilla than other things. Whereas if it's a Chianti cask, which is our biggest selling whiskey, or Tuscan oak whiskey cask, finish. We'll be looking for the characteristics of Chianti, that kind of Italian fruitiness that's in there. So yeah, it depends which casks, but the initial process is getting rid of the ones that have bad notes in them.
Yeah. And have you found that your nosing ability has improved over the years?
Yeah, I think just through the educative process, I think a bit of experience, to be honest, you start to recognize, I think your brain tunes in to not so much the sensory ability of your nose, it's more your brain's recognition of these notes. You pick up you start picking up the notes you're looking for more quickly. It's all, the first few times it was a bit of a foggy haze, because you don't really know what you're looking for, but then, yeah, you do become more expert at it, definitely.
I once read a book called it's called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, because I've always been aspirational. One of the things was, I think it went through, it's a long time ago now, but it went through the different principles under which he led his life. And one of them was a continual ability to develop your senses. And that you should actively try to develop your senses all the way through your life. And the example they gave in the book was to do wine tasting as a way of improving your sense of smell and taste.
Yeah. I think as well, as we all unfortunately are getting older, some of these senses start to dull if they're not used regularly. So in terms of, I mean, my tasting ability has become significantly better over the last 8 years of having the distillery. I think because you focus on it more. And although we're involved in spirits, I love red wine, and yeah, my ability to pick up and recognize, I'm not trying to become a wine guru, but just it makes it more enjoyable when you start to recognize things, and that's great. It's just my sense of sight that unfortunately isn't getting better.
They all relate to that. Well, terrific. Maybe we should write to the Scottish Tourist Board, because an obvious way to fight against aging is to drink more whiskey and gin and improve your sensitivity.
We have been doing our bits in that respect, because this year, for the first time ever, we started up doing our distillery tours or distillery experiences, which have gone incredibly well this year. We're not quite sure how we're going to develop on it, because it's been a really good success. Maybe we just keep it exactly the same. But it's not a traditional whiskey distillery tour or distillery tour, because we're very small, but we split it into 3 parts. Do you mind me describing it here?
Yeah.
The first third, we kind of all sit in one of the rooms in our house, actually, and talk about the history of, well, what I've been speaking about really now, how we came to Badach Row and how we started up the distillery. The second third, we're out in the distillery, talking about the stills, introducing them, talking about the technical aspect of making our spirits. And then the third section, we're sitting in our sunroom, looking out over the Tordon Mountains and the water, the sea, tasting lots and lots of our spirits, whiskey, gin, vodka, and rums. And they've been hugely successful. So if anybody's coming up to this part of the world, come and visit. You can book online.
Yeah, book online. I saw it beforehand. There's some spaces available there. I was looking at it. And very nice website you've got too.
Thank you.
I love the Dancing Penguin.
The Dancing Puffin.
Puffin, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And just to punt his new friend, we now have the Surfing Puffin, which is our rum, our golden rum. We wanted that water connection with the rum, but not in a traditional kind of piratey, storm way. So it's joined our Dancing Puffin vodka and our Surfing Puffin rum.
That's brilliant.
The rum is in the finals of the Scottish Rum Awards this year, so we're quite excited.
Say that again, sorry.
Our Surfing Puffin Rum is a finalist in the Scottish Rum Awards this year, so we're very excited about that. As is Badachro Gin in the finals of the Scottish Gin Awards. So yeah, and our whiskey has been entered, but the finalists haven't been selected yet.
And how important are awards and the process of awards to the overall marketing effort of a small producer?
It's such an interesting question, and we don't even know the answer to it. What we do know is that it gives us something to talk about. So it's a platform for conversation, and it's something we can shout about. And it does give a little bit of credibility when you're selected as a finalist. People think, oh well, it can't be that bad. Whether it's for us or not, we don't know. But it's obviously up to a certain level of quality. So I think it gives us a conversation piece. Actually, in our exports, it it's quite important. Some of you'd be amazed how many countries in the world the alcohol industry is state controlled. And you fill in all these forms, and one of the boxes is what awards has this product won.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to have some content to put in that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it makes the team and us feel great.
Good.
So we didn't enter our gin in awards for about 5 years. We just decided to focus in other areas. But we do recognise that it gives consumers a bit of comfort. So it gives the trade a lot of comfort as well. It makes it easier for distributors and shops, etc., to buy our stuff if it's been recognised in some sort of credibility way. So yeah, they're definitely part of the whole marketing net there.
And you've got quite a few distributors in different places. I was looking on your website earlier. Was that a hard thing to get?
It was quite difficult to get. It took time. Again, distributors are approached by so many producers of so many, in our case, spirits, drinks. And, they don't want to buy lots of your stuff and then not be able to sell it. And they need regular sales. They need throughput. So some of them will take you on and then drop you off, delist you after a while if you're not actually selling enough, which is why you need a team out in the market, going around the bars and shops, keeping people aware of everything that's going on. And that's an expensive process as well. So we've developed very strong relationships with kind of half a dozen distributors, mostly in Scotland, and one fantastic distributor of Ellis Wines in London, the southeast. One of our favourite customers, partners. And then in terms of exports, yeah, it's been difficult enough to get our first tranche of our first pallet of booze over to Germany, say, but then only once they've sold that will they come back and buy more. And it's getting these second sales that are the important thing, because that means it's moving off the shelves. So that requires marketing in other countries. So it has a lot to do with how we support the product in the markets that we're in.
Und du hast ein deutsches Frau geheiratet?
Yeah. Mine is medium, I would say. I'm not going to try and speak it now because it's always a bit better after a couple of drams or a couple of beers. I understand quite well. My Sean and Ashley, my son and daughter, they both are bilingual, so that's fantastic. Me, I try.
This is not product placement. My wife's German as well. Here we have. I can recommend German pronouns and prepositions.
Oh dear, I'm not.
Your small guide to the complete German grammar.
I'm really impressed, Ed. I'm much better at learning experientially.
Well, yes, absolutely.
I did a course at Edinburgh Uni in German, and came back with, after 9 months, I think, came back with about 3 phrases that I could repeat parrot fashion. I'm far better at sitting down with family in Germany and being pushed into trying.
Yeah,
that's
definitely, definitely. Well, that's brilliant. And let's not forget, we've got an offer coming up and a promotion with the Ceilidh Club. Tell us about it.
We do indeed. We have been, as you know, we've had connections for almost since we started. I think it was in our first or second year that we you very kindly put this on your platform and told a bit of the story about us. But we've kept in touch ever since, and we just felt the time was right now to offer but really because our daughter's been in London for the last year and been quite involved in the music scene in London. So any excuse to come down. But we'd love to offer all of your members a special 15% discount, which is a higher discount than we've ever offered anybody ever before, on the sales of, well, anything on our website, to be honest. And to do that, all they have to do is fill their basket up with lots of bottles at badachrodistillery.com, and then enter the code CC24, as in Ceilidh Club 24. And that should be up and running by Tuesday. So yeah, and that will be available for the next week until the 5th or 6th of October. And yeah, please, we'd love to share our spirits with anybody else who's into that whole Scottish because there's nothing like a ceilidh. We go to several ceilidhs up here, and I think there's a misconception that a ceilidh is just about dancing. It's about so much more than dancing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the sort of core reason to get together. But the crack and the chat and the fun and the laughter and just the togetherness of like-minded.
Just the togetherness, the gathering coming together. Absolutely. No, couldn't have put it better myself. In fact, I might just use your quote on a strap line somewhere.
Please do. I'd be flattered. Flattered.
Gordon, listen, thank you very much indeed for today. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you to learn the ins and outs of the whole process and the story in which the wonderful story in which you've got there, and the magnificent part of the world that you exist in. It really is living the dream. But I know that the winters can be long and there's a lot of work. And dark, and dark. And it's not just an rural little that you live in, but a hard-working place that makes brilliant stuff and helps many families and the Scottish economy as well. So it's brilliant talking to you, and well done on all your achievements so far. And when you say you've got a few more plans coming up, I'm sure there's more than just a few.
Well, I did. Fingers crossed. Ed, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the Ceilidh Club members. Keep it alive in London. That's all I can say, yeah.
We'll keep going. Thanks a lot, Gordon. Cheers now.
Bye, Ed.
Bye now.